So the Democratic primary for mayor in New York City has concluded, and Zohran Mamdani has taken the cake. We are here to break this down. My name is Alvin. I lean right on most issues, and I'll be representing the Republican side.
My name is Luke. I lean left on most issues, and I'll be representing the Democratic side. Yeah, Alvin, I guess you can get us started this time because this is a big one.
Yeah, so this is a huge video because we haven't seen a political surprise this big since potentially Trump winning in 2016. I can't recall the last time that something
AOC.
this big has happened. Okay, AOC, but yeah, okay, sort of. You have a point there.
I had to throw that in
This
there.
was
Sorry.
absurd though. Zohran Mamdani winning against Andrew Cuomo in the mayoral primary. Now, of course, New York City does run their primaries by ranked choice voting, and so won't know the final results. However, since Brad Lander, the third place candidate, likely most of his votes will go to Zoran, we can pretty much conclude that he will get over 50% unless
Yeah.
somehow everyone ranked the wrong person and misread Cuomo as Zoran Mamdani. So the problem here is, or I guess the good thing if you're a progressive here, is that Zohran Mamdani did extremely well in Brooklyn, obviously, where he was expected to do extremely well. But he also won Manhattan and Queens. Queens specifically, I was
Yeah.
expecting him to do pretty well. Actually, I remember I privately told you about how I thought Zoran would do well in Queens, but people were really doubting his ability to win in Queens. And he was able to overperform there, as well as Cuomo's margins in Staten Island being quite weak. And even in the Bronx, I mean, really, Cuomo only won one racial demographic, being black voters. And that is not going to be enough to win this.
Yeah, this is just like a very surprising turn of events. Andrew Cuomo, of course, former governor of the state of New York. It seemed like his political comeback was quite inevitable. Like every poll, almost every poll really, had Cuomo ahead by large margins. Like even up
Correct.
to a couple days before the election, we were seeing double-digit polls with Cuomo winning by double digits in the first round. And I think every poll in the first round actually, maybe with the exception of one, had
Yeah.
had Cuomo up. So the polls like had a huge miss this time. I heard like some postmortems on the polls already. They think it's because they weren't sufficiently able to reach new voters who turned out. I mean, it seems from the early voting that already that lots of people were going to be first-time voters in this election, and I think that just kind of took the polls by surprise here. And I bet those people overwhelmingly voted for Mr. Mamdani. Um, yeah, and then obviously the borough results, as you brought up, very, very interesting. I mean, obviously we expected Cuomo to win the Bronx. Well, landslide in the Bronx. Staten Island, though, like he didn't even get a majority there, and that's like, I mean, he as an Italian, like Andrew Cuomo, like come on, this is a weak margins. And then obviously Mamdani, like I mean, Queens was like pretty heavy Adams turf back in 2021. So I figured it would vote for Cuomo. That was the conventional wisdom, even though Mamdani had his assembly district there. But he far outperformed expectations in Queens, in Brooklyn. Manhattan seems a little closer for now, but once those ranked choice votes are tabulated, that pretty decent lander margin in Manhattan's mostly going to go to Mamdani, and he'll have a comfortable victory there as well.
Yeah, good summary, good summation there. Of course, for people who really aren't tuned into the race, Brad Lander, the third place candidate, was also running in that pragmatic progressive lane, and had pitched his second choice ballots to Mamdani. So a lot of those ballots will be going to Mamdani. And it was also, as a side note, just really surprising how poorly Adrian Adams and the rest of the field did. Adams coming in with 4% in the first round, really abysmal showing for her.
Yes.
Being the city council president, she was polling way ahead of that. She was close to Brad Lander in some of the polling, maybe at like 8, 9%, but really, really underperforming last minute. Just seems like she completely blew the race somehow. And yeah, I mean, in general, just a complete denial of Andrew Cuomo's comeback story. There's only going to be Trump, I guess, that's able to come back from something big. I mean, Cuomo just got absolutely obliterated. I did not expect this at all. I don't know if you want to delve into any like precinct level data, but just even on the right, you can see some data off the bat. Of
Yeah.
course, Donnie winning heavily in higher income precincts. I mean,
Yes.
some like lower to middle class precincts did vote for Mamdani. Mamdani is sort of won the like upper to middle class range. Cuomo did extraordinarily well in the poorest neighborhoods, which also sort of coincides with the black community. So I don't know if you can draw too much from that, but also Cuomo did very well in a lot of the very rich areas, like the highly rich areas, such as the Upper East
Yeah.
Side. So you can't really just look at the income just off of like who won the higher and lower income, but generally Mamdani did win the wealthier, like upper middle class types, with Cuomo
Yes.
winning the extraordinarily rich types that, of course, would be very much hurted by Mamdani's policy. And if you take a look at like education, which isn't on here, for example, like Mamdani obviously won higher education
Yes,
voters,
this is true.
and he did extraordinarily well with like educated whites, which is a big proportion of New York City as well.
Yeah, and then they also like New York Times, like I love them here because like they compiled the database on race as well. Mamdani did win white voters as expected. I think by a lower margin than the polls predicted, to be honest, but he did win white voters. Interesting. I mean, it was pretty expected that Cuomo would win black voters. It seemed like that would be his base. He had a lot of focus in places like the Bronx, so he won black majority precincts pretty handily. The surprises come in the next two racial groups. Hispanics, with Mamdani outright winning the group potentially, winning Hispanic majority precincts as a whole in New York City. That's very impressive. Every poll I saw had Cuomo winning Hispanic voters handily, but it seems I don't know, maybe it was I don't know whether it was the Cuomo's horrible brand or Mamdani's good campaigning, but he ended up winning them in the end. Um, Maybe the AOC endorsement helped in that lane, but yeah, it just seemed like he got a majority there. And then the Asian voters, of course, ending with those. Mamdani, of course, South Asian descent, so he did great in those communities. But I'd also like to note in East Asian communities, he also won it out. If you look at Chinatown or Flushing in Western Brooklyn, also areas where uh, he did very well. So yeah, so combined, he had a pretty diverse coalition. As you brought up before, the income variations were also interesting, with like Cuomo winning like the poorest and the absolute richest, the very top, and then yeah, basically middle income to upper income people. Zohran Mamdani was winning. So yeah, very interesting coalition he built here.
Yeah, I mean, I will note with the East Asian communities, it's not a convincing one. I mean, it looks like it's deep here, but actually, if you do look at Flushing, it is actually very split as well with the East Asian community. But him running it up with the South Asians especially. The thing is though, just I guess overall, like if we move back to the all precincts map. It is important to note that like these precincts are just by racial majority, so it's not like
Yes, it's
definitive
not like yeah.
results based off of the racial group. So take what we just said with race with a grain of salt. But yes,
Mhm.
in general, just so amazing victory by Zoran. Extraordinary campaign towards the final month, really coming out from nowhere, and first of all, doing extremely well in the weeks leading up to that final month in the debates, everything like that, to establish himself as the main majority, I guess, leader of the opposition, to use a term from foreign nations, as the leader of the opposition against
Yep.
Cuomo, uniting all the anti-Cuomo votes behind him, all the hate Cuomo votes behind him. Brad Lander, doing his part, getting arrested in that immigration courthouse, I'm sure gave him a bump. But it wasn't enough to take over that. Maybe if he tried to get himself arrested a little earlier, maybe he could have been the leader of the opposition and won this race. But too little, too late for Brad. Also too little, too late for Cuomo. Just, I guess, a lackluster, sluggish campaign that had very little enthusiasm compared to Mamdani, who had volunteers crisscrossing the city over and
Yep.
over again, raising money as well. That was not just big billionaires for Cuomo. So, actually, very impressive showing by Mamdani. Moving on to our predictions, I will have to take a victory lap here, I suppose. I did predict the Mamdani victory. I did not expect that. I guess he's going to win probably by around 13 points or more, according to the betting markets, which I don't think anyone could have really like seen in their wildest dreams. I don't think Mamdani would have seen this in his wildest dreams. I don't even know if he went into the night thinking he was going to win, honestly. But yeah, this I did see that Emerson poll. Now, going back to this Emerson poll, which is the only correct poll out of all the polls, so big
Eh.
W's for
So
Emerson
yeah, yeah, I guess it
round.
was
He
like
did
sorry.
get they did get the first round wrong, I will say that, but they did do very well in the final round, which is what matters compared to everyone else. YouGov and Marist in particular, that is abysmal. What is this going to be, like 27 points off by YouGov? But
Yeah.
regardless, looking at this Emerson poll, I always thought that looking at the crosstabs that that this number right here, I already voted, was a big jump, and that the very likely to vote was a small gap. And we saw that actually on election day. If you paid attention on election day as the election day votes were coming in, Zohran Mamdani would slip maybe zero point 0.1 here or there, or even gain in some batches. Cuomo was not able to catch up, and that was huge here in this. In this, we saw that Cuomo wasn't able to catch up, as well as still have this hourly forecast say from Tuesday here, where really the heat must have got to Cuomo voters who were substantially older. And so Mamdani was able to pull it off. And I'm able to say that I predicted this one. No matter how much I don't like the guy, I will say that I foresaw the future here.
Yeah, I mean, that yeah, you did predict he'd win. I did not think. I thought the Cuomo machine would be stronger. I thought the Dem establishment would be stronger. I thought Cuomo, like, I mean, obviously the polls misled me here a bit. I thought Cuomo would win it, even though Mamdani had substantial momentum, and he was running a great campaign. Mamdani, I just want to note again, he started this campaign at 1% back in January. He was a nobody, and he forged an insane, like a very formidable campaign over the last couple months. That paired with all of Cuomo's scandals and flaws, like all those sexual harassment, credible sexual harassment allegations against him, seem to have had an impact on voters, and voters chose a New York that um, with not a corrupt sexual harasser as leader. So that's good. Um, so okay, from here, I think we've gone over the race. We saw Mamdani win. Now Mamdani is the Democratic nominee. Now we go on to the November election, where it's still going to be an interesting race here because we have Mr. Mamdani as the Democratic nominee, versus a Republican who's Curtis Solo. He's like a perennial candidate. He repeatedly rather runs for the Republican nomination. He did so in 2021. And then you have obviously the current mayor, Eric Adams, still running as an independent. Now, Cuomo recently dropped the news that he will, well, not really recently dropped the news. It was leaked from his campaign, and multiple Cuomo campaign officials have stated that Cuomo will not run in the general election. So it seems like it's going to be primarily a three-way race here. Mamdani, the hyper progressive Democratic Socialist, versus the more moderate incumbent mayor Eric Adams, versus the Republican Curtis Silva. Now, I don't know. Do you have anything you want to say about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been speaking with you about this for a while, that and even on this video on this channel, when
Hmm.
we previously spoke about this race, I said if Mamdani wins, and I thought he would, that I think Eric Adams has a chance. And I thought this chance was around 10%, okay? And, I still thought, okay, maybe 10% Eric Adams wins, because still, Zohran Mamdani regardless of him having the D next to his name, which is extremely powerful in such a city that generally mindlessly votes for the Democratic nominee in the general election, Eric Adams, even though he is very much just like, I think there will be a considerable pushback among moderate Democrats, among this moderate Democrat lane slash like capitalist, business savvy Democrat lane that, is very prominent in New York City. I really do think that they will try to find anyone to reject Zohran Mamdani because of how radical's ideas are anti-capitalist and generally hindering economic growth in the city. And so I think that people will see they have no choice but to rally around Eric Adams. Now, will Curtis Silva, the Republican, drop out and endorse Eric Adams? If yes, I think Eric Adams has a real shot. But right now, I'd still say chance around 10 to 15%. Now, I guess the betting markets agree with me here because Eric Adams has now been floating up to a 23% chance, which, if you guys remember, before this Emerson poll dropped, Mamdani was at 23%, okay, to win the Democratic nomination like 4 days ago.
Okay.
And look, that, 24%, 23% was where Mamdani was. Then he won. So this is definitely a plausible scenario. I know you completely disagree with
I
me here,
do.
but I think Eric might have what it takes to get it done, and I'm hopeful he will.
Okay. Well, I'm not really rooting for corrupt Mr. I'm going to do the bidding of the Turkish government at all. But even put that aside, I don't think Adams is much of a shot here. Firstly, I don't think Curtis Silva will drop out. Curtis Silva hates Adams, so I doubt he would do anything to help him severely, like much less endorse him at all. This guy is a guy not really bound to the will of the traditional Republican Party. He is historically not really listened to Trump. He's just like his own. He just runs repeatedly. He does his own thing. He ran against Adams in 2021, if you'd recall. I am highly doubtful he drops out for him. So I feel like that's pretty much off the table to start. Um, then obviously there's Adams' approval rating. Adams is likely the most unpopular New York City mayor in recent history. Um, his approval rating is like 15%. Democrats don't like him. Independents don't like him. Republicans don't like him. Like, I think Republicans actually are his strongest base now, believe it or not, which is kind of sad for a Democrat. But so there's that. And that already is bad news for him because that means Silva and him are kind of sharing a voter base. Um, and additionally, with all that and his extreme unpopularity, he has to contend with Mamdani, whose approval rating is pretty neutral in the city because obviously they don't know how he'll be. He seems like a positive guy, positive campaigner. And they have to deal with the campaign that won double digits against Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic Party. Like, that's an incredibly formidable campaign that Mamdani ran, and I think I just don't see Adams being able to build the coalition to break him down. Now, sure, business leaders might side with Adams out of desperation, but business leaders sided with Cuomo and got steamrolled. So I just like I can't see especially with the Democratic Party and like having the Democratic Party line, like rather for lack of a better term, the label rather, it's hard for me to see Mamdani losing. I mean, the public polling on testing the race points to Mamdani winning as well. So that's all I have to say on that.
You do have good points there, especially on this campaign. However, of course, the primary is going to attract the most enthusiastic voters, which are generally the most extreme voters on either side. Honestly, I think this is a part of a broader conversation of why the primary system is broken. However, I think that when you take a look at the generic electorate, I think it's possible if I mean if Curtis Silva drops out, which I think is around a 10% chance, it's real possible here. And even outside of that, if moderate Democrats think Silva has no chance when they might vote for Adams. Republicans might start voting for Adams. Independents might vote for Adams. I mean, Mamdani is particularly far left out of the entire field. This guy is a borderline communist, and so it's quite possible that he goes down in the general election. Uh, we'll see. My thoughts might change on this as we get our first post-primary poll. If Mamdani is winning by 40 or something, okay, I might just have to concede this one. And I'm sure the betting markets will act accordingly if we do get that poll. However, the previous poll that we got, look, it's like it's there, but Mamdani still only has 33% in like the new polls, like the late May, early June polls, and is Silva with 16, Adams with 19. I happen to think if Silva just drops out, and even if he doesn't, there still might be a slight chance. If Silva does drop out, he pledges his voters behind Adams. That would immediately overtake Mamdani, and then it would really be like
Up
a
to the undecided voters, which will hate Adams. Like I
yes, but
again,
well,
I think
also they're
Adams.
not comfortable behind Mamdani.
Yeah, but I
So
think
yeah,
Mamdani's name rec isn't like perfect. Like I again, he's running from nothing. Like he's
it's
running from a
big.
position of nothing. And again, he's
It
gonna have
is
the
pretty
D next to
big.
his name. I
You
think
will have the D next to him. I don't know. I still think it's possible.
I think it's enough that Mamdani very
Okay.
very likely wins.
Well,
But
well,
we can disagree on that. The general is still a long way away. But I think right
correct.
now, um, he's on track to win it all.
Okay, now one more question for you as we move on. Do you think that these results show something broader for the nation, specifically within the Democratic Party? Do you think that this will be the start
Oh no.
of socialist and progressive starting to win, or will this just be
No, I
focused
don't
on
think
New
so.
York City?
Okay. So my take here, I mean, okay, Mamdani ran a great campaign. Um, good for him. And honestly, like him winning will be an interesting experiment, overall, especially if he does win overall, because I believe it'd be the highest, like, or in terms of population wise, in terms of people you were governing, like the Democratic Socialist that represents the most people in the country at a given time, at least in the last like 20, 30 years, to my knowledge. Because I mean, Bernie Sanders reps like maybe 800K people, uh, AOC way less than that, maybe 100K generously. Um, and Mamdani's going to represent 8 million people and not like a legislator um, position aligned position. He's going to be an executive of the city. So that in itself will be an interesting experiment. But more broadly, I don't think this is going to be replicable in many other scenarios. I think even though Mamdani ran a great campaign, and I think his campaign is like his campaign style could be a model for future Democrats. I don't think the party's going in that direction just merely because um, his opponent was Andrew Cuomo, and I think the flaws of Andrew Cuomo um, sort of kind of overshadowed this victory just a little bit. I mean, obviously, you can argue, yeah, like Mamdani's the one who trumpeted those and presented those to all the people, but it's the establishment Democrats' fault at their core for coming behind and trying to push Andrew Cuomo to the front. That was that is why that is a large reason why this outcome happened. So uh, obviously lots of credit goes to Mamdani's strength. I don't think this is going to be something that we see emerge like in 2026 when Democrats are running more broadly um, for House races and Senate and governor races all across the country. That's my take. What's
Yeah,
yours?
we'll see. I mean, like more far left Democrats are definitely taking their victory lap and hoping that they'll be able to replicate this in primaries, sort of get like an AOC wave 2.0 in 2026. We'll have to see how that goes in the future. But for now, a major victory for
But
Zohran Mamdani.
do you think the party will like? But what's your take on like the party's movement? Do you think
I
we'll
think
go in the
this was
Mamdani direction?
probably limited to New York City because you put up a sexual assaulter, you're likely to lose.
Yeah,
That is what I see. And even beyond that, I mean, he had other scandals too, we've talked about numerously on this channel. So just come on, guys. I mean, put up a better candidate against the socialists, please. This is not what we want to see, what I want to see. I mean, this is probably what you want to see, but regardless. I mean, that's all I really have from you from me for this video, right? I
I
mean,
mean,
we'll see how this ranked choice goes, and we'll probably talk about that when it comes out, final results.
yeah. I think we both agree Mamdani's going to probably win by either close to double digits or double digits in this Democratic primary here.
Yeah, I think double digits, probably like 11, 12.
But yeah, Mamdani being in charge of the city will definitely be interesting because like you'll ha like it's definitely going to be him balancing, obviously what he was campaigning on and many of the socialistic policies he wanted, like free childcare, free busing, rent-free, et cetera, and him having to balance that with the city council, the New York legislator up in Albany. Like he's gonna have to probably contend with the demands of like upstate New Yorkers too, because to secure funding from New York State, he's going to need, the consent of the governor and the legislator. So I don't think he's going to like I find it hard to believe that he'll have the capability of outright destroying the city, even if he
No,
wanted
he
to.
likely won't, thankfully.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah.
like I imagine like but as good of a communicator he seems like a genuine person who genuinely cares for the city, and I think that's an upgrade from Adams and much better than Cuomo would have managed. So that's my take.
Okay, well, if he does indeed destroy the city, I'll say told you so in a year. Otherwise, though, this guy's likely going to be your New York City's next mayor. So that's about it from Bridging the Gap on this topic. We'll be revisiting this when the final ranked choice tallies come out. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed. Comment down below any future video suggestions and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.